Welcome to A Simple Life. Today, I'm going to be talking about something much more serious than what we normally do. You know, trying to figure out how to process a loved one having a terminal diagnosis was probably one of the most difficult things that I've done in my life. I am not a psychologist or a doctor. I hold no degrees in anything at all. Zero. But what I would say is, if you're dealing with something like this and you need somebody to talk to, I wouldn't talk to a doctor or a psychologist. I go talk to somebody that has their life rooted in this creation that we've been blessed with. And what I mean by that is go talk to a pastor, a fellow believer, a farmer. Farmers deal with death and life every day. It's just part of living on a farm. And so if I were you, I'd go talk to a farmer. Not this one, because I'm not qualified. I'm a farmer, kind of. Homesteader, how about that? And that really plays a huge part into being able to deal with a grieving process. At least for me, it's really helped a lot. You really start to see how life begins and ends, how everything in between there is so valuable and amazing. About 5 years ago, my dad came and visited, and we were living in the suburbs. Maybe it was 6 years ago. And I noticed there was some issues with the way that he was interacting with the kids, with me. I just noticed things had changed. And I noticed some stuff had changed over the last 10 years. And I just written it off to, a cat's in the cradle and the silver moon, and my dad was just too busy to answer phone calls. And I just figured that's what it was. It was just life had gotten him busy, and he just was too busy for me. And it stung, and it really, it became this issue that I ended up dealing with over the course of a couple years. And I was like, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. Obviously, I know my dad loves me, but I don't understand what the issue is with the lack of communication. Well, he comes and visits with my mom, and me and Christine go out to eat, and I turn to Christine and I go, I think my dad has Alzheimer's. And she goes, what? No, I go, no, seriously, I'm not joking. I really think my dad has Alzheimer's. And I go, listen to all this stuff. I go, he's doing all of it. So I got back and I pulled my mom aside. I said, you need to take dad in. I think he has Alzheimer's. You need to, there's definitely something wrong. I'm not sure what it is, but there is definitely something wrong. And so it turned out that the doctor was like, well, he's got a little bit of memory loss, but nothing drastic. Go enjoy your lives. Who knows what it is? It could just be that he needs to get more sleep. And at the time, my dad was traveling a lot. And so because he was traveling a lot, it made a lot of sense that he was tired. He had jet lag all the time. And so they went around about their business. And 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, my parents are getting ready to go overseas to work as missionaries. And they were down in Arizona. And so I go down, and I end up being a bit of an errand boy for my dad. I did all kinds of errands, did all kinds of work for him. And one day he goes, hey, can you go out and weed whack the whole backyard and trim my trees? At the time we were already on the farm, and so I guess he had enough faith in me not to destroy his tree. I don't know why, but he did. And I go, okay, sure. And I go, do you got any boots I can borrow? I mean, we're not really the same size. We're kind of close, within a half size. And he's like, yeah, you can take these boots. he lets me borrow these pair of boots. And so I go out, I get all the yard work done, I butcher his tree for him, I butcher a couple trees. I get everything cleaned up the best I can. I come back in and I go, all right, where do you want me to put the boots? And he goes, oh, keep them, take them with you. You can use them on the farm. All right, thanks, Dad. Kind of look at them, they're basically like a dress boot. I'm thinking, well, they're not gonna do anything on the farm. I'm not gonna be able to work with them on the farm. So I put them in my bag and I don't really think much of it. A year goes by and my dad starts to drastically decline. Like, he went from being perfectly coherent, can drive, can do all kinds of stuff, to the point where you can definitely tell there's something wrong. I mean, there is definitely something wrong. And so my parents come back to the States and they end up going to the Mayo Clinic and they say it's either frontal lobe dementia or it's Pick's disease. And so they go, you know, he's probably got like 3 years or 2 years, something like that. I think it was about 2 years. And so my dad started slowly declining. I went out and spent some time with him and, you know, just enjoyed his company. So 2020 hits and everybody's at home because of COVID. And I order my pair of Mick's boots. And at the time I was just wearing some military-esque kind of boot. And they were just getting destroyed. These boots were just not holding up to working on the homestead, doing fencing, you know, they were just falling apart, to be quite honest. And so I decided, well, I got 3 months before my next boots show up. I guess I'll just get Dad's boots out. Probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And the reason I say that is my dad was still around, but I knew he was dying. There was no doubt about that. You could see it, go to visit him, and the spry, athletic, Energizer bunny type of man that he was gone. He still had some of it. He'd get a glimmer in his eyes, and he'd take off running on a trail, and you'd be like, I hope he stops running before he forgets that nobody's chasing him. The productive side of him was gone. And so, 2 things happened that summer. One thing is I got to wear the worst pair of boots I've ever owned in my whole life for a whole summer. And that's these guys. They are the worst work boot I have ever had, bar none. But every moment I wore these, I was happy. And the reason why is because between mucking stalls, fixing fences, digging, putting fence posts in, working animals, moving goats, I got to continuously think of my dad because of the horrible boots he gave me. I say that jesting, but at the end of the day, I spent a whole summer with my dad. In my mind, I was able to process that whole summer, cry my eyes out while digging fence posts, and at the end of the day, I grieved my dad for a whole summer while still being able to call him and say hi to him, talk to him. That grieving process was amazing. And I say that with tears in my eyes because at the end of the summer, I spent a whole summer digesting the man my dad was and still is, hopefully through me. I was able to think about the life lessons he taught me. I was able to think about the time I spent with him. Now, not everything was rainbows and unicorns, but I was able to process the man my dad was. But at the end of that summer, the end of the summer of 2020, almost exactly a year from when my dad died, I called him. And you could still have a conversation with him. He could give you yeahs. He understood what you were saying. I spent probably 10, 15 minutes thanking him for who he was to me. It's just coffee. Okay. I spent a good 15 minutes thanking him for who he was. The lessons he taught me, the character he built in me, the faithfulness he showed our family. I mean, nowadays, that's something that I don't think many people take seriously. But with a divorce rate of 50%, I'd have to say my parents had to make a decision that a lot of other parents decided not to make. So I thanked him. I poured my heart out to him. I got to basically read a eulogy to him. I didn't have any notes. I didn't have any grand thoughts going into it other than I wanted to thank him from the bottom of my heart. For who he was and what he instilled into me. So there are three things that that I was able to boil down in that summer that my dad really taught me. The one thing, and I say it all the time, is failure is always an option. That was something my dad kind of instilled in me. There would be times when things just weren't going right. And instead of throwing his hands up in the air, he would take a step back. He kind of gauged the situation, and he'd come up with an absolutely insane plan of how he was going to tackle it. And it would work. And I'm not going to go down a bunch of examples, but that was one of the things that he really instilled into me was this: you can fail. It's okay. Just don't fail because you're doing something dumb. Do it because you're trying something potentially new. You're trying to solve a problem in a way that is not standard. So that was one of the things that he had instilled in me. The other thing is, what makes you a man is not being a male, but it's making the decisions that nobody else wants to make. When you are faced with some of the toughest decisions that you can possibly make, what makes you a man is making the hard decisions that you do not enjoy. You own your stuff. I tell my boys all the time, you own your stuff. That word can be filled in with all kinds of other words. The third thing he instilled into me was this attitude, this idea of why not me? Why can't I be the person who goes out of my way to help others? That's something that I have been working to instill into my boys, because it's really easy to walk by the pile of trash and not do anything about it. It's a lot harder to stop your day, take a minute, clean up the pile of trash, and go about your day. Nobody will thank you. Nobody cares that you did it. But at the end of the day, you've made a difference. Getting a meal to the homeless person, helping your neighbor that literally probably can't do anything to help you back. That's all part of that attitude of why not me. And so I have to say that these boots were probably one of the most incredible things for me when it came to figuring out how to grieve. I mean, there is nothing fancy about these boots. They've been torn up and destroyed. But the fact that I was able to spend the summer with my dad before he passed, some time absorbing the person he was, and knowing that that person was passing on in the future, sometime. It ended up being almost exactly a year ago. It's actually the 24th. It'll be 24th of August. It'll be a year. The fact that I was able to spend time processing the loss of him and still be able to talk to him and tell him how I felt about him, I think was incredible. I've not regretted the conversation I had in front of my barn with my dad. It was just over the phone. We just talked. Well, it was actually FaceTime, but he put the phone to his ear. So I gave up trying to look at his ear and just put my phone up to the ear. It was an amazing way to grieve my dad. I hope it helps you, because that process was something that organically happened to me. And I realized how important it was after the fact. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear my stories about my dad. Miss you, Dad. I know you're up there. I love you.